This is Avi on Business.
Welcome back to 101.9 High FM. The time now is 5 minutes past 10. Thank you so much for joining me on the Avi on Money show. It's getting earlier and earlier. Just want to make it very clear that the morning show is not going to become my slot. It's not what I want to do. But it's always great to be with you and be able to share with you the questions that you've come up with over the last period of time and the concerns that a lot of people are having. It's something that I find so fascinating is that I tried, especially at the beginning of my career, to bring in guests who were super sophisticated, who ran big funds, who were able to explain the big macroeconomic um, going ons around the world, how a war affected the economy in certain countries, how the price of oil affected the price of fuel, how fuel affected the price of transport within a country, what that did to inflation, etc., etc. And whilst those shows were really enjoyed, I got the greatest satisfaction when we went back to, as we call it, Investing 101. And we really spoke about grassroots stuff that sort of keeps people awake at night. Unless I suppose you living in Iran at the moment or in Dubai or maybe in Israel, staying awake because of a war is not something that you really need to be concerned about. But being kept awake because you're not quite sure how you're going to get through the month, well, that's practical. Staying awake because you're watching yourself getting older, you're watching expenses go up, you know that you are not saving enough, even though you haven't had the guts to stare it in the face and do the calculation. You know where your parents are, you know where your friends' parents are, and you know that you are going to be in some sort of trouble come a time where you are no longer able to work. The question whether you want to work or not, I think that horse has bolted for a lot of people. And the reality is that they are going to have to work into retirement. So what I'm going to spend today doing is the beginning of a 4-part series. And this is to lay the groundwork when it comes to savings and investing. I usually wouldn't say the two of those words, savings and investing, in the same breath, because they are totally different animals when it comes to the way the investment and the savings pot are treated. But maybe the starting point is the same. Maybe the starting point is the realization that something needs to be put away for a future date. And that's where we're going to start today. We're going to introduce all the different elements that are involved in savings, that are involved in investing, and we're going to demystify some of the concerns that some people have, but also demystify some of the misconceptions that are out there. And let's also look at some of the tricks. They talk about the magic of compound interest. That magic is a double-edged sword. It runs both ways. It'll either run in the way where your money will grow without you having to do anything. The term that is used is that your money works for you. And the other side is that you work for your money. It's so nice to have this money available. But what is it really costing you? And at all times, I'm trying to be as sensitive as I can to the reality of the scenario where people are already hard up. But on the other hand, that does not negate the fact that the facts are the facts. Reality is reality, and we need to work within certain norms in either to pull ourselves out of the trap that we are in and or to start making our money work for us. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back with you in a moment.
This is Avi on Business.
Welcome back to 101.9 High FM. It is 10 minutes past 10. Thank you so much for joining us. And before we go into our topic, let me just let you know that if you're looking for an engaged and loyal audience, there's no better place than right here on Chai FM. Our listeners tune in every day for music, conversation, and news that they can trust. When you advertise on Chai FM, you're not just buying airtime, you're becoming part of a community that genuinely listens. Whether you are a small business or an established brand, we'd love to have a conversation about how we can work together. You can WhatsApp us on 061 895 1019. That's 061 895 1019, or email us simple info@chaifm.com, and Chai FM will reach out to you. Chai FM, part of your every day. So just before we went to the break, we started the introduction that we are going to have a 4-week seminar talking about savings and investments, talking about putting money away for the future. Let's start at the very, very beginning. What is the difference between savings and investments? Well, they have almost the identical characteristics. You have an amount of money that gets put away into an account. You have an interest rate that is attached to that. So if you're going to a money market account and the bank says they will give you 6%, well, then you know you're putting 1,000 Rand away every month. You will put away 12,000 Rand over the year, and you will earn interest of 8% on that money, or 6% on that money. But you'll start earning it from day one. So the moment your 1,000 Rand goes in, you're earning 6% per year on that. And now, by the time it comes to month 2, you no longer have 1,000 Rand in your bank account. You have 1,000 Rand, and I'm going to do the calculation together with you. 1,000 Rand times 6%, which is 60 Rand, but we've got to divide that by 12. So now you're going to have 1,005 Rand in your account. You're going to have 5 Rand there that has got nothing to do with what you've put in. That 5 Rand is simply there. So now we put in another 1,000. So we've got 1,005 plus another 1,000, which is going to give us 2,005. Now we times that by 6%, and all of a sudden, that's 120 Rand per year. Divide that by 12, it's doubled. We got 5 Rand last month, we've now got 10 Rand. So if I take that and I add 2,005 Rand to that, we've got 2,015 Rand. 15 Rand, not a hell of a lot of money. Don't know if you can buy anything with 15 Rand. But you've got 15 Rand that you never paid for. 15 Rand that arrived in your account. And by the time this goes, you will have an extra 100 or 200 Rand in your account at the end of the year. I can see some of you putting a face like, big deal. So I'm going to do all this for 100 Rand. First of all, the answer is a resounding yes, you are. And the second answer to this is going to be, it's not so much the 100 Rand or the actual quantum that you've got. It's the concept that we're dealing with here. That you can put money somewhere and all of a sudden it grows. And just like you plant a little white bean like you did in primary school or nursery school under cotton wool, and you water it every day, and then you see this little shoot, and there's a little green shoot coming up and the roots, and then eventually you go and you put it in a little pot, and then eventually if you keep watering it, this thing starts sprouting. By that time you've lost interest in this thing. Why? Because you expected a Jack in the Beanstalk scenario. You expected to take home to your mommy a bag of Woolworths beans because you planted this thing 6 weeks ago. and you slaved over it for 6 weeks, and you don't even have a little bud that will become a bean. And it's difficult for a child to understand this, but we are all children when it comes to doing new things. And we are all children when the need is great, the time is short, and our patience is frayed. We need to understand that this money will grow and grow and grow the more we keep it there and the more we keep adding to it. Take our bean story. One clever kid turns around one day at the end of the school, at the end of the term, and asks the teacher if he can take all the bean plants home. Why? Because the other kids are not interested. He's the only one watering them, and he's asked all the kids, and they've even forgotten that they had beans. Well, he tells his mom, she comes with a station wagon, and they ask little sister to come with, and they load 25 bean jars into the back of the car. And they put them neatly on the windowsill, and they check up on chat and on Google and on LinkedIn, not LinkedIn, what's the other one called, YouTube, what they should do. And they water them for another few weeks, and then mom goes and buys a bigger planter, and she gets planting stuff from Builder's Warehouse. And one Sunday morning, they do the transplant, they put little sticks in, and next thing, they've still got no blooming beans. They've got stalks, lots of them, 25 stalks, beautiful flowers. The whole thing looks like it's happening. There's no beans. And one day, little Johnny wakes up, and the beans are starting to form. But now Johnny needs to be careful, because they're outside. The Indian miners are there. The hardy-dars are there. The slugs are there. He's got to protect his beans. So his dad helps him to buy, with the shade cloth, they buy a little cover, and he meticulously looks after them and watches them. And at the same time, he keeps watching the YouTube videos. He keeps dealing with chat, asking questions. And he ends up with a bag of Woolworth beans. And that's what we're talking about here. Persistency, consistency, the highs, the lows, but just doing it every single day. And not putting your head in the ground and saying, you, my advisor, you meant to watch it. Yes, they are, we are, but it's your money. That's almost as criminal as saying to the school, don't tell me how my child behaves. I sent it to you. I paid top dollar. You look after my child. That parent shouldn't be looking after the child when they come home. So too, do you deserve to look after your money? If you're not prepared to take the time and the effort and look at it and watch it, when it's on your app, when it's on your phone, when it's on your laptop, when it's on your email, the days of excuses are over, ladies and gentlemen. It's a time of ownership, era of information. We now can empower ourselves. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back with you in a moment.
This is Avi on Business.
Welcome back to 101.9 Chai FM. Just to let you know that Discount Wellness Clinics for Adults offers convenient and professional help to help you manage your health risks. Whether you're having your regular wellness checks such as blood pressure or cholesterol, Discount Wellness Clinics offer you a broad range of health screening services, including female health screening with pap smears, family planning, and pregnancy screenings. Fast, affordable, and with care. Find your nearest Discount Wellness Clinics inside your closest Discount pharmacy. Discount pharmacies, better health starts here. Right. So we ended off on quite a firm note saying that you, as the investor, are going to take charge, you're going to take control. If you look at your bank app, and I'm saying bank now because I refer to every single bank in the country, there is a simple solution on the bank to help you budget, to help you do future calculations, to help you work out what you can and can't afford, to help you work out how much you should be saving in order to put down a deposit on a house. It is all there. The days of taking out your HP calculator or your shop and putting on the right settings and maybe sitting in the estate agency exam and doing a whole month just on calculations is not necessary anymore. It's very nice to know how the mechanics work behind it, but it's not necessary. You can ask AI to create a spreadsheet for you, and you can double check that. You always need to check AI. But what I'm saying to you is that it's there. The difference between savings and investment is something called inflation. And inflation can best be explained to someone who's got their day in a rut, their life in a rut, just going and going and going. How often have you walked into the store to buy the necessities? And let's use the cliched necessities, bread and milk, maybe peanut butter, maybe some toiletries, I don't know. And you just swipe. You don't look at what you're swiping. I assure you, if you ask your colleague sitting next to you, your spouse, what a loaf of bread will cost you, the answer used to be, I don't know. The answer now is, I don't care. Why? Because I need to buy it anyway. So whether it's 20 Rand or 25 Rand, it doesn't make a difference in my life. The truth is that it does make a difference in your life, because when bread moves up, it's a barometer. It's the canary that lets you know what's happening with the economy. And so many people will say, I just couldn't be bothered. I'm going to go to this and this bakery. Kids like the bread. It comes ready sliced, and this is what I'm doing. I'm not giving a budget lecture now as to how you should budget and save yourself $200 a month on groceries. It's not my area of expertise. But what we are seeing more and more and more is that people actually don't know what things cost. The biggest shock that people got was when they had to lay out hundreds of thousands of Rand for solar electricity. They had to put solar on, they had to mortgage their bonds, they had to take out loans. And all of a sudden, they had to look at what the electricity spend was via the city and what the electricity spend was via this major investment that they made. And all of a sudden, we all became actuarial scientists by working out how long is this thing going to take to pay off. All of a sudden, a lot of people felt hard done by because the electricity supply stabilized. All of a sudden, there was this panic to buy solar because otherwise you actually couldn't get through your day. Now, the network is stable. So why do I have it? But now you sit down and you do the calculation as to what am I spending, what was I spending, and how much am I going to save this year, over 3 years, over 5 years, and into the future. And those are the important things to bear in mind. Now we come back to the idea of putting money away and allowing money to save and to work for itself. Don't know if you remember that scene on Mary Poppins where there was the run on the bank, where the two little kids wanted their money, and all of a sudden the rumor spread that there was a run on the bank. But the saying was a penny wisely invested. And then they give a list of where it's going to be invested in railroads and forestry and cities and whatever else they were going to do. In other words, the bank was taking their money, lending it out, charging for that, and they were earning interest on their penny. Where does interest put us? Well, number one, in South Africa, compared to the rest of the world, it puts us in a very nice position because we get interest that we can actually count. 6%, 8%, 10%. That's proper money. You put R1 million in at 10%, that's 100,000 Rand. That's no joke. It's not to be sniffed at. Ignore the tax for now and ignore the bank costs. Just you put $1 million in, at the end of the year, we give you 101 million. Wow. That is money working for you. Yeah, but if I put in 100,000 Rand or 1,000 Rand, I get 100 Rand. What must I do with 100 Rand? The same principle applies. If you borrowed 1,000 Rand, the bank would have charged you, let's say, on a credit card, 20%, you would have been paying back 1,200 Rand. Which means if you could have, let's say you did kept the money in cash, you could have put it in the bank and earned 100 Rand. You didn't spend the money because you don't want it. You want to keep the cash for a rainy day. Okay, fine, that's your indaba. You then go and put the money on your credit card. You buy an item for 1,000 Rand and you don't pay it back, the capital. You just pay the interest. The minimum interest you're going to pay back is 200 bucks. So if you add the 100 you could have earned, the 200 you paid, you down 300 bucks. And then you understand that saying the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. In South Africa, we know many, many people who were immigrants, many, many people who came to this country or grandparents came to this country penniless, could barely speak English, definitely couldn't speak Afrikaans, and they built empires. Yes, there's many reasons. There's many areas maybe of assistance that they had. Take that all aside. It was just logic and common sense that they applied to their money. To put it in perspective, I remember university, first year university, one of the things that our one lecturer brought to our attention is that in those days, I don't know if it's changed, but if you were a supplier to Pick n Pay, you do not get paid on 30 days. You got paid, I think, on 60 days. So if you supplied 1 million rands worth of goods to Pick n Pay, you were not going to get paid on those 1 million rands for 60 days. At the same time, we know that those type of stores have a concept of RTD, return to RTS, return to supplier. If it's a consumable, lettuce, I don't know, bananas, it's got to be on the shelf at a certain day and sold by a certain day. If it's not, it's taken off and it's sent back to you. So if they send you back 100,000 rands worth of bananas, number one, there's bugger all you can do with it. And number two, they're only going to pay you 900,000 Rand on that invoice. In the meantime, you've had to pay your supplier when you got it. Or if you're the farmer, you've had ongoing costs. Your wages get paid every week. Your fuel gets paid whenever you need it. Maybe you pay your fuel weekly. Your installments on your equipment, your machinery, your leases, your bonds get paid monthly. You out of pocket for 30 days at least while you're waiting for that money and while you can get the cycle to roll so that it starts to match up at some point. Woe is you. But on the other hand, you're damn lucky to have that contract with a big supplier. So you make a plan. But where's the genius in it? If that big retail store is holding everybody's money for the second month, and let's say half of the first month, they are earning 30 plus 15. That's 40 days, 45 days interest on your money. They're doing nothing. They're simply keeping it in the bank. And by the time they have to pay you your 1 million rand, they've already earned interest on it. And without doing the calculations, they will not be paying you 1 million rand. They'll be paying you 1 million rand into your account, but it's costing them 1 million rand less the interest that they've already earned. So here is a beautiful concept that is simple, easy to use. It just takes one word, and that's discipline. Ability to put something away and not to touch it. And yes, I can hear 1,000 voices telling me about life happens, or that other expression about the paw hitting the fan. That's all good and well. We do not live our life in crisis. We do from time to time, but we need to be able to stand back and make a plan. As a financial planner, I often get asked the question, why on earth am I putting away money in a retirement annuity every month when I can't pay off my credit card? Why am I putting money away in a retirement annuity every month when I have to take my holiday on a credit card and pay it off over 6 months? The answer for me is pretty simple. Because if we only lived by keeping our accounts at zero, they will remain at zero by the time you retire. The other dilemma comes in when the person sits down to you and says, I've got a challenge. Got my kids in Jewish schools. Cannot afford to pay the full school fees. They are absolutely exorbitant. But I've got a retirement annuity. I've got money going away to my retirement. I've got life cover. I've got savings for each one of my children. So when they get to tertiary, I'll have something to put them through. Where do I draw the line ethically? And it's a very, very big ethical dilemma. And again, I'm not involved directly with this, but I have seen some cases where the school or the institution will actually ask you to write that all down. And they'll ask you to put in holidays. And they'll ask you to put in savings with the understanding that people need to plan for the future. People need to have a holiday. People need just to be with their kids in a quiet environment, or watch their wives, wake up later in the morning and just walk up and down the beach and allow the batteries to recharge. Those are important things also. It doesn't negate or take away from the fact that we need to understand how these things work, and we need to make sure that we start to save and we start to invest. When I started off in this industry, I had a colleague. He's still very much around. Maybe he's listening or his wife's listening. A wonderful gentleman, a phenomenal financial planner by the name of Daniel Bernstein. And Daniel was somebody who just gave practical, solid advice. And I remember going to him and say, Daniel, I've met this young client. This was nearly 30 years ago. And he's got 100 Rand to put away, but I'm unsettled about his ability to keep it up. I don't know if he will or if he won't. And let me unpack that statement for you. What my concern was that if I sold him an investment policy for 100 Rand in those days, which you can't do today, it's too small, and he stopped paying it, he would be hit with penalties, and I, as the financial advisor, would lose the commission that I earned. Being young, being eager, and being very desperate to earn a living for my family, I was keen to start an investment for him. And he said to me, you've got to stand back and look at the big picture. Only person who counts in this scenario is the client. Do what's right for the client, and you will earn your just dues in truckloads in time. So start like this. Let's encourage the client to open up a money market savings account and make sure that they open up a debit order or a set transfer from one account to the other every month. And let's check on them on a monthly basis whether that money is being transferred. If after 6 months we have 600 Rand in that account, now you know that the client has really started on the journey. The 600 Rand has grown a bit because there's a little bit of interest. Now what we'll do is we'll take that 600 Rand lump sum, we'll put it into a unit trust, and we'll have 100 Rand a month debit order on that unit trust. Great. Let's keep the asset allocation, the funds that we're going to be investing in, quite conservative, almost to match the interest rate that he was getting, so the risk is limited. So if the client does stop and does take his money out, he's not going to suffer from the short-term market movement. Okay. And then my anxiety was, well, where's the money for me? Where do I earn money on helping the client with all this? Well, you earn 0.5% on the total value of that investment. So by the time they pushed over the 600 Rand and it became 700 Rand times 0.5 percent. You really want to know this. It's 29 cents. Call it 30 cents a month I was earning on that. Almost invisible amounts of commission. But as that starts to grow, and as the client became more and more steady, graduated from law school, started their articles, started earning decent money, said to me, please keep our unit trust. I like that idea of having accessible money. But instead of 100 Rand into a unit trust, I want to put 1,000 Rand now towards my retirement. The 1,000 Rand went up every year by 10%, plus the ad hoc amounts that this person would put in for tax purposes. The unit trusts became 3 unit trusts within 5 years, and not at 100 Rand, but at 500 Rand a piece for each one of his children as they went along. The client learned the idea of savings, saw the reward, was allowed to slowly build this portfolio. I was rewarded generously for the advice that I gave, all because I listened to the advice of a senior advisor whose only concern was doing the right thing for the client. So Daniel Bernstein, I haven't seen you for many years. I hope you and your family are well. But thank you for that advice, because that is the same type of advice that I now pass on to my AFAs, my associated financial advisors, who are joining Isihlangu Financial Services, now and in the future. If we just do right for the client and guide our client and teach them, it'll be a win-win situation for everyone. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back with you in a moment.
This is Avi on Business.
Welcome back to 101.9 Chai FM. And just as I thought, the questions are coming in. Where can we find a calculator? Guys, it's 2026. Ask Chat to please help you build a calculator. But you don't even need to bother. Just go into your bank app and look for tools, calculators. It'll all be there. But you need to know the variables. The variables are, you need to know what the interest rate's going to be on a savings account. And then if you go into your bank account, for example, on Standard Bank, and you say open new account, and you go to savings, it'll tell you what it's going to give you. Use that as a barometer, use that as a guideline as to what you're going to earn on your money. It might be a little bit out, it might be quarterly and not monthly. Yes, it will change the calculation, but it'll give you something to start playing with. We're in February now. Oh, how did I say that? We are in July now. I said that because of tax year end, which is something that's very much on my mind at the moment. We are in July now. You've got roughly 6 months to December. Have you ever thought about how much you could save between now and then? How much interest you could earn in order to help you with your December holiday? Go on, play, see what it's like. Maybe ask Chat to give you a calculator where you can put in the reverse calculation. Say, I need 50,000 Rand for my holiday. I can get 6% in the bank. How much should I save monthly? And you might be very surprised. You might look at that figure and say, wow, I can do that. That is actually achievable if I do this, this, and this. All of a sudden, you're in charge, or you're in control. We've only spoken really about savings. And savings is linked to the interest rate. Interest rate is linked to what we call the repo rate. The repo rate is a rate that the government, the Reserve Bank, well, not the government, the Reserve Bank charges for banks for overnight loans. And there, from the repo rate, we get the interest rate, or the prime rate, which is usually 2% higher than the repo rate. It's steady. It doesn't move on a knee jerk. It moves either up or down. and it moves on something called a cycle. It'll be either on an upward cycle, and that tends to be when inflation is high and we want to bring inflation down, or on a downward cycle. In other words, we are charging less to borrow money to encourage people to borrow money so people can go out and spend money and kickstart the economy. And that's all got to do with inflation. And that was a super simplified way of looking at all of that. Yes, I said it in the beginning of the segment, in South Africa, we're lucky because our interest rates are high. That needs to be qualified. Interest rates are high, which means we earn more money in our bank than people do overseas. But people overseas can lease a car at 5%. You can't lease a car in South Africa at under 12%. Not going to happen, or 10%. I'm not totally afraid with the figures. But there's something called the interest rate differential between ours and theirs. And you'll find that our borrowing and lending rate mirror their borrowing and lending rate. It's more expensive to borrow, and you get less when you give money to the bank. And that is how it works. So yes, we might be 3 or 4 or 5 basis points higher than our not competitors, our colleagues in the UK, in the US, or other countries and other emerging economies. But the in and the out both mirror each other. There's a difference between the two. So why do we have higher interest rates? Well, we have higher interest rates because our inflation tends to be higher, but also higher interest rates works well for our economy because, as I said, we have something called an interest rate differential. People can come and invest in our government bonds, which are long-term secured investments, and they know what they're getting and they know what rate they're getting, which is better than they could get elsewhere. They can also put into our short-term investments. People can deposit money into our institutions, and they can earn overnight rates. They can earn a week rate, and therefore they can a rate weekly, and therefore they can get money on their money. But what we need to bear in mind is that they run something called a currency arbitrage or a currency risk. Is that if the currency works against them, they could wipe out all the interest that they've earned when they expatriate the money back out. And that becomes a little bit more complicated. It's inter-trade banking. It's a whole different animal. But be it as it is, what that means, that if you've got money and you're sitting on cash in South Africa and you haven't got it in the bank, you're either a drug addict or you're running something else that's not exactly legitimate, or you're not using your full acumen. Because why on earth would you look at notes when practically you know by the end of that week or the end of that month, there could be another banknote on that stack that you've deprived yourself of? And before you start yelling, bank costs, fees, expensive, go and do the homework. Go and do the homework. Comments just come up here. Banks are thieves. They charge you. Banks are institutions that are run on profit. Thievery is when you don't understand what they're charging you for and you allow them to charge it. Fair business practice is when you understand what it's for and you deal with it for the benefit of using their institution. Stop playing the victim. Stop playing that everybody is out to get you. All that happens is you spend your energy being foolish instead of taking that energy, looking forward and being proactive. Yes, I'm sorry, I am coming across harsh, and maybe as I get a little bit older in this industry and I hear the same nonsense from clients over and over again, I used to refer to it as the braai property investment, where you stand around the braai and some guy's putting a lot of money into his RA and into other vehicles, and he's got savings account, and some dude's telling me about a property investment that's giving 25% per month and guaranteeing tenants and capital growth and na 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 na. And this poor guy stands there just with his heart falling out his backside because why didn't he know about this investment? And why is he only, the market's down, he's only getting 8% and 9% and he's losing out. And then towards the end of the evening, they walk out and he looks at the vehicle that this Mr. Property guy is getting into, and something doesn't add up. And when you ask around, you find out this guy doesn't own property. What he's talking about is a scenario that he heard at the bar that he went to last week. I'm not negating that there are many people who do this and who do really, really well. And stay close to them and learn from them if they're willing to share. But please don't become disheartened by people who talk nonsense when they actually haven't done anything. When they've done something, then you can say, okay, would you mind sharing with me how it works? Let's take a quick break. We'll be back with you in a moment.
This is Avi on Business.
Welcome back to 101.9 High FM. There you just heard an advert about a show with David Sussman. One thing we can look at our South African entrepreneurs, and I'm talking about the previous generation. There are incredible entrepreneurs this time. But yes, a lot of them had a foot up and they had their dads and grandfathers and grandmothers to sort of learn and be mentored by. But so many of them didn't. Just to share a personal story, I remember my wife's grandmother, who by the time she had left South Africa, had sold the most exclusive ladies' boutique store in the country in Rosebank, that she started from scratch. Started off as a ladies' bridal shop, and eventually it became a highly sought after ladies' clothing shop. She traveled overseas 2-3 times a year to shows in Paris and London and Milan in order to buy, and that was long before cell phones and any of that type of technology. But she told me a story about her late husband who arrived in South Africa at age 12. And him and his late dad were so poor that they lived in a back room on Rocky Street. For those of you who remember Rocky Street in the old days, it was a trendy place, but it certainly wasn't the Houghton. And the job that he had after school was doing grocery deliveries on a bicycle. You can just picture that black bicycle with the wicker basket in the front and then maybe the legs that came down. And he came home ecstatic one day because there was an order for a bag of sugar that he had to deliver to a family in Berea. And the commission on the bag of sugar was enough for them to get by for a couple of days. That gentleman went on with his accent to build a clothing empire, an empire that manufactured ladies' clothing around the country, and so much so that he became a bit of a hazard in public because he would walk up to ladies and touch their dresses, and that wasn't socially correct. And when ladies would look at him and say, sorry, I made this dress, it came from our factory. Just the pride in his product and the pride that he had built something that was absolutely phenomenal. You look at his children today, none of them live in South Africa. One of his sons has an OBE. Another one of his sons is the most trusted Jewish kosher caterer in Portland. One daughter has built a property empire. The other daughter is head of social services in Toronto. And these are immigrants who came here not being able to speak a language, being so proud that they were able to sell a bag of sugar in order to survive. We have so much more than them. We have so much more at our disposal, opportunities, knowledge, availability to different information. Now's the time to start working at it. Even if it's not achievable within the short goal, set the ground. Start preparing your cotton wool and your little jug of water. Then go and buy the beans. The water is basically free. Plant the bean and let the bean grow. And as boring and as monotonous as it is, let that bean grow. And when people laugh at you, ask them for their beans. And one day you will have a bean garden that will look something like Jack and the Beanstalk. And at the end of that beanstalk, there is money waiting for you. But it's a long, hard road. And the most important ingredient is commitment. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much for your time. We'll see you next week, and we'll be discussing the retirement scenario. Craig, thanks for pushing the buttons. Have a good day.